Okay, so my name is Nema, and in a moment we're gonna listen to this person talk for some reason. Panel discussion. Okay, that's not. All right, so in a moment I got a few slides, but first I want us to do a quick exercise. This will require you guys closing your eyes for about like 15, 20 seconds. You guys ready for that? Because that's exactly right. You know what I figured? Lunch plus a productivity training session is a wonderful combination. So let's just, jump to the end and we'll just fall asleep.
Wake them up for the next one.
We got it. Okay, you guys a little rest. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want us to, in a moment, not yet, we're going to close our eyes. And I've done this a few times, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But here's what we're going to do. If we focus really, really hard as a group, we'll actually be able to stop time. Don't believe me? Just watch me. Okay, so I'll close your eyes. And I want you to focus really, really intensely on stopping time. Okay, open them. Did you guys feel that? No? Yeah, because it's not a thing. That's why I didn't feel it, because it's literally not possible. You can't do it. It's an oxymoron. You can see it right there. I mean, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but I'm very good at it. Time management is kind of not a thing. It's something people talk about. I believe in time efficiency, believe in prioritization. Yet, as the great Tony Stark once said, no amount of money ever bought a second of time. So let's talk about time for a moment. We got about 47 minutes together. During that time, we're going to have some discussions. I'll ask you guys some questions, really focusing on the difference between busy and productive. I do have a few thoughts, which I will share. I also want to hear your thoughts. One of the things I love about these sessions is we have the collective genius in the room. You may learn a thing or two from the next 46 and a half seconds. 46 minutes and 30 seconds. You'll probably learn more from each other. So if you have a tip, you have something that works, please do share it. So here's the thing. I'm going to ask you a question. Anyone can share the answer. In your world, why do we have so little time to do all the things that we want and need to do? Throw it out there. What gets in our way? Kids. Say again? Kids? How old are they? Mine are old, but they always get in the way. I mean, I have a nephew. I have a 5-month-old nephew, and I feel like he's got a job by now. So that just might be, kids these days, right? Very entitled. Okay, so kids, priorities, for sure. What else? Commute. Say again? Commute. Yeah. DC metro area. It's tough, right? A lot of things to do. Sleep. That'd be awesome. Yeah, so then you guys know a guy named Jocko Willink. He was a Navy SEAL. He's now a leadership speaker. Yeah, he's on Tim Ferriss' show a lot. He has this concept of discipline and motivation, and his view on motivation is really unique, I feel. He talks about how motivation is very fickle, how it fails you when you need it the most. If we're waiting for certain things when we get motivated, we never get motivated. And so he talks about this idea of discipline. Discipline equals freedom. And this is kind of the framework that I want us to really embody. Because you have to accept a couple philosophies, at least I had to. We all make time for the things that are worth it. I may not have time to go to the gym. I'll somehow find an hour's worth of time to scroll on Instagram throughout the day. So we just make time for things that are valuable. So I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions here. Here's the first one. And for this one, I want you guys to turn to the person next to you. What are some of the indicators of poor time management, otherwise poor time prioritization? What are the things that you get sucked into, the things that kind of suck away from your productivity? Turn to the person next to you, spend 30 seconds. What are those things? We'll need more than 30 seconds, I get it. We'll get 3 or so, all right? 15 seconds. 10. Okay. All right, so let's get a few of them up here. Cool kids in the back. Yeah, you.
We said social media as we're young, so every 10 minutes we have our phones out looking at something. Explain social media.
Say again? Distraction, okay. Yep. Distraction. You might not be able to read this, but let's face it, all of this is about me anyway, so we're fine. All right, so we got distraction, social media. What else? What else?
Jessica had a good one. Unexpected drop in the water cooler chats.
Ah, okay. Unexpected chats. Jessica? So give me an example of an unexpected water cooler chat.
Like if you're in your office working on something and someone just pops by, and I mean it's harmless, but then hey, how's it going? And 20 minutes later, you're like, don't want to be rude, but at the same time, gotta get back to work.
Have you considered being rude? Okay. Okay. So
It's not in her DNA.
you know, so actually, this is an important point, and obviously, Jessica, I'm kidding. But does anyone feel like that they're too nice sometimes? A little bit. Yeah, it's a joke, but it's probably also true. We've probably heard this before. The idea of saying yes to too many things. There's a lot of reason for it. I got to tell you, I suffer from a very high need for approval, and I'm a pleaser. So yeah, expectation setting, all that for sure can be an issue. This side of the group, what is something that tends to suck your time?
Distraction from your priority. Someone asking you to do something in the office, and you do it just because you want to help them out, and it pulls away from your actual list of things you're doing.
Yeah. So I think these are all great. We got a few of them down there. You know, like the email aspect, and I get that it's hard sometimes. There's pressing issues. A request comes through. We feel this need to reply back immediately. Now, from a productivity perspective, not saying it's possible, but I do have a lot of clients who literally have in their emails a prompt that says, I typically check these emails between 8 and 10 a.m. and 4 and 6 p.m. Please, if this is an emergency, call me or text me. It's little things like that you actually realize, that's smart. And some people have a hard time with it because we have, at least me, need to please. I found that a little bit of equal business attitude, a little bit of respect comes from that. When I have a client that says that, it leads me to believe that they respect their time. We train others on how to treat us by the way we treat ourselves. Probably heard that before, right? So emailing, the no pay time versus paid time, not saying no enough, frustration, lack of goals. I think we all know these things. And my hope here is that we'll get a few thoughts, a few ahas, a few genius attacks that we can apply. And we'll do at least one exercise. We'll give us a chance to really prioritize a few things and maybe come up with some strategies to help us overcome them. So for the owners in the room, leaders in the room, who here feels like they are the best at delegation? You could teach a master class on delegating responsibilities. This is, by the way, this is like Planet Fitness, judgment-free zone. Or if you prefer Outback Steakhouse, no rules, just right. There's no judgment here. Who here feels like they have a hard time delegating?
Who thinks that in that exercise area there's no judgment?
Oh no, that's why I go there. It's the only reason I don't work out. I just go there and just judge people. Yeah, that's how I get my emotional needs met. All right, so let's talk about what are some of the things that cause us to not be good delegators. I'll give you an example. But no, you know what? Let's go to Kevin.
I find sometimes I don't find the medium language, the language in the middle. Meaning, sometimes I feel like I almost gotta go, you do this, you do this, you do this. And that doesn't go down well. But when I start getting frustrated, I go that direction. But I need more, I guess, to stop with the, I really don't like delegating in the first place, but I know I need to, know it's part of the job, and just need to say it in the right way. But sometimes, especially on the job site, I just don't want to be perceived as being mean or demanding, but I want to get my point across. And so it always seems to be a struggle for me to say it the way it should be said to get the motivation to do it.
Who can relate? I can relate.
I mean, is everybody else yelling at everybody else in the site?
It takes years of experience in the field being a boss, delegating and how to delegate it.
Yeah.
You got your favorite people and you're talking to them and say, look, I need you to do this, I need to have it done by the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're very respectful of that. If you need help with it, then you let me know, I will get you help. It builds confidence in them.
Say that last part again. What's your name, sir?
Steve,
say that last part, the part where you said if you need
help, I'll get you help. And it builds confidence in the guys. They know, they trust you.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing I found out. Sometimes there's an inverse correlation between people who are the most experienced and those who are the worst at delegation. Steve, you're obviously great at it. The other side happens too. Someone is so good at something, they say, well, I know I can get it done. I can get it done quickly. Let me just do it right. But the problem with that is we end up fostering a culture of learned helplessness. We enable, not empower. I'm going to throw a few techniques, and some will be talk tracks, actual things you can say. And you can try them on, pick the ones that work. One of my favorite things from a language perspective, if I'm in a team situation and someone comes to me with an issue, take the breath and realize that many people actually know the answer to the question. They need permission to share it. So the technique is oftentimes something as simple as, that sounds kind of important. What would you suggest we do about that? Instead of sweeping in and rescuing, someone comes up with an issue and they're taking away our time, whether it's a water cooler talk or otherwise, sometimes these techniques are really hidden in plain sight. They may have the answer. Your people may have the answer, literally. And it's a function of just asking the question. Hey, it sounds important. What do you suggest we do about that? So we take on too much delegation. I feel sometimes I can do it best. I can sometimes foster an environment where I'm rescuing a lot of people. Who here knows what rescuing is? Sydney, what's rescuing?
Rescuing is when you come in, you let somebody try something, and I'll come in and I'll fix it because you didn't do it right the first time.
Yeah. Anyone here have sales as part of their role? Somebody here perform? Okay. So there's a reason. So Cindy, spot on. Sometimes the absolute best salespeople don't make the best sales managers. Who wants to take a guess as to why? That's definitely a part of it. Well, what oftentimes leads someone to be promoted to sales management? Say again? Being good at sales. So sometimes what happens in sales management is someone does a rock star salesperson, get promoted to sales management, and then they know they can do it well. They've literally gotten the job because they're great at selling. Now they have to manage a group of people, and they say something along the lines of, hey, tell you what, why don't I close this one for you? You kind of watch and shadow, and then next time you'll be ready to go. But here's the thing. You guys know the adult learning model? We tend to learn or remember somewhere around 20% of the things that we see, 50-60% of the things that we see and hear, and about 90% of the things that we see, hear, and do. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. In the remaining 35 or so minutes, who here is doing the most amount of work? You guys or me? Yeah, damn right it's me. Yeah, don't be presumptuous. It's still me, okay? Let's not go crazy. Who's doing the second most amount of work? You guys are. Because ultimately I can tell you all the things that work for me, but it doesn't necessarily be working for you. And so keep that in mind when it comes to delegation and management. A lot of times it's our job as leaders and delegators to draw out the genius that exists in our team, empower and not pour in. Okay, Who here is really good at procrastination? Like,
Don't call it that.
what do you call it?
Putting it off till a better time.
I like it. Does it work?
Managing my opportunity.
Managing my opportunities.
How does it work? Does it work well?
It makes me feel better. I'm not a procrastinator.
Really? You're not a procrastinator?
I'm joking.
I know. So one of my favorite quotes is by Mark Twain. It's actually a great book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog. So Mark Twain said, if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. So a few things there. One is, who here oftentimes when they have a list of things to do, does the easiest things first? There's a really interesting study called on ego depletion. Ego depletion is one of the coolest things I feel exists in cognitive behavioral science. And ego depletion, it's proved in countless ways. So for example, there was a study done at the World Health Organization years and years and years ago. And they wanted to figure out what the greatest mortality risk was at the most developed hospitals in the world. What they found is the biggest cause of death in hospital, doctors not washing their hands. Kind of surprising, right? What do you think it could have been years and years and years ago that may have caused a doctor not to do something as simple as wash their hands appropriately?
Focusing on bigger things than washing their hands.
Say it loud and proud.
Focusing on bigger things than washing their hands.
Yeah. Who here has been to a hospital recently and gone through some kind of procedure? Yeah. Name, date of birth, name, date of birth, name, date of birth, name, date of birth, right? You feel like you're in Groundhog Day? There's a reason for it. All those checklists that exist, they exist for a reason. Because the more decisions we have to make, the less good we are at making them. It's called ego depletion. And so when you think about whether it's building process or having systems, it's so that we can do the things that require us to almost operate simply. So when we have to actually think, we have the faculties to do so. And I think that for me, eating the frog is an example of that. If I got something tough to do, wouldn't I want to kind of build momentum by doing the toughest thing first, eating that frog in the morning? Again, great book, Brian Tracy, Eat the Frog. So we'll come back to that in a moment, but I think that there are certain things we'll talk about later on that are important but not urgent but not important. And it's our job to figure out which are the most important. For those of you guys that know Stephen Covey, it's right out of that 7 Habits. So we talked about this a little bit already, but I'm a very simple man. Oftentimes when people are feeling more busy than productive, it's because they don't have a plan, they don't have goals, they don't have discipline. And I feel like it's really, really simple. But here's what I'll tell you. Does anyone know the difference between simple and easy? What is your name?
Marcy.
What's that?
Marcy.
Hi, Marcy. Marcy, if I was to ask you to break a rock with a hammer, and I was to say, here's a hammer and here's a rock, I want you to hit the rock as hard as you can for as long as you can until it breaks in 2. Is that a simple concept?
Yes.
Is it easy? No. Difference between simple and easy. And I think it's important to understand the difference of these things. And so in a moment, I'm going to have you guys do an exercise and work with a partner, and we'll see if we can maybe take things that seem hard that might be not easy, but make them more simple. Here's the exercise. Turn to the person next to you and build a list. Just 3 things you have not had time to do the past 2 weeks. Talk about how important are these things. Like, have you not done it because it's not important? Or it's just important you haven't really done it? Are they important to achieving a goal? What's prevented you from achieving that? Should you continue to keep trying to get to them? What impact is there to not do them? I'll give you some context around this. Does anyone here have calendar blocking? They schedule things in their calendar. It buzzes off, and your phone buzzes and says you're going to make your 10 follow-up dials today. You guys have that? How many of you guys hit snooze on that? Again, the question is simple. I'm not saying do that. I'm saying, well, if you're snoozing it 17 times, then maybe you should ask whether it's important or not. So have that as part of your dialogue. I'll give you guys good 5 minutes for this. Work with a partner. Build a list of 3 things you have not had time to do in the past 2 weeks. Answer these questions. We'll come back and share. Sound good? All right. Two more minutes. All right, like 15 more seconds. Okay, let's get one brave volunteer to share, or volunteer someone else to share, which is also fun. Yes.
All right, so I have been meaning to paint my living room.
Okay.
The whole drywall patches that I did
Nice.
for like a month and a half. I haven't done it because I've been going golfing on the weekends.
Golfing?
Yeah.
Are you any good?
No. At least you got your priority.
All right. Yeah.
Football season started.
Grab my business card. You said you weren't good, right?
No.
Good. Yeah, even better.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And then I mean it's important to get it done because I want the living room to be complete, but I like golfing and watching football more. So.
I mean, who doesn't? Yeah. Yeah. It's a great one. And we'll talk about actually how there's free frame things: personal, business, pay time, no pay. Very good. Someone in this general vicinity.
My biggest issue, for the most part, work related, is updating schedules and keeping track of my budget. Just because from being old school, coming from a framer is where I started, that's where the money gets made, is in the framing and keeping stuff going on the job, so that secondary paperwork tracking crap is less important.
That is a perfectly acceptable answer.
Perfectly said, Danny.
Yeah.
That's old school boys.
And I'll give you guys a framework, and it's not even, some of the, there's a great quote related. Anyone read Stoic philosophy at all? Stoicism or, Ryan Holiday stuff? Anyway, they talk about, if you want a new idea, read an old book. Some of these things are actually pretty old, but we just kind of forget they exist. So what we're going to do briefly here, I'm just going to give you guys a little framework. Comes right out of Stephen Covey, which was what, like 1970 or something? A long while ago, yeah.
Most of everybody in the room doesn't remember.
Tell you what, so much of it just requires doing the work. So if you're thinking about some of these things and they exist in business, it's the Covey management matrix. We got urgent, not urgent, important or not important, and then on this side, sorry, my got cut off, important. So we'll take your example. What are some of the things you mentioned that are the most important?
Well, again, it's keeping things moving on the actual job site.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crisis management, a phone call, I need this, I need that, or we have a discrepancy in the drawings, it's not, dimensions are not correct on the drawings, so it's not, what we're supposed to put in that space isn't big enough.
Yeah, so on this side, sounds like you got these ones, right? And do these get the necessary attention? Yeah. It's rare. It's absolutely rare, if ever. That'd be strange, right? Someone's like, building's on fire. Like, yeah, you know what? I'll get back to that one. So usually this part of the matrix, we kind of do on autopilot, right? We do the urgent and important, and that's kind of what most of our attention. Let's look at the other stuff. So what's your name? Denny. So Denny, let's look at the other quadrants there. What are some of the things that might be important, not necessarily urgent, and you allow them intentionally or unintentionally to bleed into the time that is really focused on the most important aspects? What's something that's important but not necessarily urgent? Planning. Yeah, planning. I mean, planning is great.
Go back to the dimensions, certain dimensions, if you don't have that.
Certain dimensions, specs and things, yeah, for sure. Let's keep going and we'll open it up. What is some, as I look at this little matrix here, what are some of the things that are not important but are urgent or seem urgent? Which, by the way, can include a water cooler conversation with someone who's lovingly stealing your time from you.
Many phone calls.
Many phone calls. Replying to emails? Yeah. So this, again, is simple, not easy. What I would suggest, we don't have a ton of time in this session here, but this might be as simple as, and you can obviously have the recording, you can screenshot it, you can Google it, Covey's time management matrix, and actually make the matrix and just Pick the things that are the most important, the most urgent. My guess is this part will actually be the easiest because you're already doing it. And then from there, okay, well, I've built momentum. Then what are the things that are urgent? They seem urgent, but not really that important. What are things that are important but not urgent? Planning, all the stuff. By the way, I'm a big believer of working on business, not in the business, but there are certain things we can do. We can time block. And what is the robber, the thief of the not urgent, not important? Write them out. Just write them out and see what you come up with.
Like football games?
That might be important and urgent. Okay, I'm just going to throw it out there.
It's not important, it's
Urgent. Well, you know what's funny? I actually think one of the biggest mistakes that I made personally, and this really came to a head by like May, June 2020, is when we went into the virtual world. My travel time, much of it was taken away. I went from consulting and training, facilitating them in person to doing it virtually, and I had so much more time. So I started to stack 18 different meetings back to back to back to back to back, and then reached epic burnout and realized that I need to actually time block, time to think, time to go walk around the block, because I was actually not any good to myself or someone else. So I said as a joke, no, I have no problem whatsoever, and I think it's important to prioritize things that charge our battery. So Washington Capitals, any Washington Capitals fan here? Any Penguins fans here?
Bruins?
Get out. All right, so do the exercise. It's super valuable because then you can actually use this information to time block, to calendar block a little bit. So, AKA time efficiency and priority management. Few things I think are really, really important. Who here feels like they have a really, really good set of habit stacks? Anyone read James Clear, Atomic Habits? Okay. Even if you don't really fancy yourself a reader or consumer of anything that's Atomic Habits by James Clear. One of the best, if not the best, productivity books you can read. And it's not even about business, it's about life. And I'm a big believer of having some sort of a routine and having a habit. I'll give you an example. The concept of habit stacking is taking certain habits and stacking them together so that each one leads to the other. And I've had both good and bad. There was a time where my morning routine was so good. I had my 10 minutes of meditation, my 10 minutes of journaling, and then my 10 minutes of like some sort of thought-provoking, book or podcast or exercise. That was great. Morning routine, awesome. Evening routine, also a habit stack, not very healthy. After a long day, I would get home, suit jacket comes off, hand goes on the bottle of bourbon. That was also a habit, by the way. Because once the suit jacket came off and I hung it up and the hoodie went on, we're lazy thinkers. The next thing was the bottle of bourbon and the Cheez-Its. Not together. That's a bad flavor pairing. I don't know. Maybe him. We'll see. Golf, right? Cheez-Its, bourbon? Okay. All right. So it seems like this whole thing, but if you don't have a routine of some kind in the morning or in the evening, it's so powerful. Anyone have one? Anyone have like something that they do pretty much every day? Say again? Perfect. What happens next?
Park, eat it.
Okay.
Think about what's going to happen.
With like the Chick-fil-A? With the Chick-fil-A itself?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, what's going to happen here? What kind of gamble am I taking? So if you don't have one, I highly recommend it. Power of routines, of habits, it really does create momentum. Ego depletion, we talked about. Part of the reason why I'm a big fan of Eating That Frog is we want to reserve the energy we have in order to be able to do things that require the most effort. So simple tweak. If you have a to-do list, if you keep a little to-do list, I don't care if it's like a piece of paper. There's a lot of apps out there. I just have a journal that sits in my driver's seat and I write down 3 things in the morning. No matter what happens, at 5 p.m., I'm going to complete these 3 behaviors. And I still use the little checkoff list and it works out really well. So assuming you do exercise about this, time block tasks and prioritize, but I mean this in a very intentional way. And this ties into the idea of clustering certain activities. Who here has, as a component of their work, turning in folders, doing proposals, following up, emailing? You maybe have a good number of those things to do. One of the simplest little productivity tweaks is just to stack them, to cluster them. I know it seems so incredibly urgent, but if you have 3 aspects to pass the production, and assuming they're not 5-alarm fires, cluster them and make those part of the time block. 4 to 5 p.m., that's the time I'm getting ready to wind down, and I'm going to do these administrative tasks that are important, but my expectation was you will have that by the end of business. Do them together. It also makes it easier, I think. Anyone feel like they started doing these things and you just kind of hit that little stride? So, big fan of that. Let's talk about pay time versus no pay time. Maybe not for, is that Matt? Man, you see that? Yeah, not bad. All right, so pay time versus no pay time. I wrote down a few things here that I think were helpful for me. One actually comes from, well, I didn't write it down, but one actually comes from Ernest Hemingway. Hemingway, he had 2 things I like. One, he said, write drunk, edit sober. But that doesn't really apply here. The other thing he would literally do, which I thought was really genius, he would actually finish writing for the day or night in the middle of a sentence. Crazy. He would actually finish in the middle of a sentence. Why are you saying not crazy?
Because it keeps his thought. Once he completes something and complete a thought, he doesn't have a string to the next.
Yeah. So
that's
smart, right? And it's weird because as human beings, we're actually hardwired to find finite points of completion. I actually think sometimes I gain more motivation or more productive when I leave myself a little bit of like a Easter egg to continue on. It's a silly thing, but yeah, there have been times I've literally stopped something, which sounds odd, stopped something kind of without it being completed because the next day my mind is going to try to find a way to complete it. So it was a simple thing I started doing, and that came from, like I said, new idea, old book. And he was like, that if it works for him, then that's pretty good enough for me. So some of these things I think is a tweak of just almost tricking our brains to becoming more efficient and productive. Who is the honest persons in this room that said social media and distractions? Okay, very honest. I'm a fan of incentivization. The issue with social media for me, pay time, no pay time, is not the thing that we enjoy. It's maybe earning the right to do it. Who here remembers playing basketball when they were a kid on like the park? Anyone do the thing where you had to make like 3 in a row before you could leave? Remember that one? No? You never do that? You have to like make like you have to end on a make? Okay. So it's kind of the same principle. I'm a fan of just earning it. If you want to take some time and check social media or do whatever, or watch YouTube videos, just make that a part of the game. Incentivize it. I'm going to do these 2 things afterwards. I'm going to reward myself with this. I think that's how I have found it to be valuable. We'll talk a little bit about framing, and then I'll have you guys ask a few questions as well. So personal time, business time. You like golf? You like football? Football is almost every day now, right? So yeah, I mean Sunday, personal time, business time, and so on. What are the certain things, Matt, that are personal things that maybe find their way into your pay time, into the time that, and here's what I'm going to define the terms clearly. Pay time and no pay time. They may all be important, but when I think of pay time, I think of the things that really require being done during the hours of business. Meeting with clients, certain things are important, but can be done outside of it. So from the perspective, Matt, of business versus personal, pay time, no pay time, are there certain things that you feel you do during your pay time that may otherwise be no pay time activities? Football being notwithstanding.
Fantasy football.
Okay.
You think about it, you're like, well, if I'm going to put my phone up for 5 minutes real fast, check my fantasy lineup, and do that 3 times a day. It's like a half a lunch right there. Or just standing at the job site, just checking your fantasy every hour, nothing's changed.
Still? Nothing changed? Yeah, so I think the hardest part, and the reason why I always do it in this order, is to recap, the first step is to really just spend some time. Not like hours. You could probably spend 15 minutes with a piece of paper and a pen and write out what are the things, as we talked about on that matrix, what are the things that are important enough to change. Figure out which are the things that are absolute importance during our pay time, and what are the things that maybe we are doing that could be done later on, and calendar blocking it. You may, theoretically, say, all right, well, you know what, 4 to 5 p.m., I'm going to allocate that 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, to follow-ups, admin, proposals, and so on. And so much of it is actually just writing it out and figuring out what are the things that we can prioritize and put in a timely manner. And then the hardest part, I think, is to actually stick to it. You guys, anyone here watch Seinfeld? Okay. There's a really famous Seinfeld clip, which I will now butcher. You guys remember the episode where Jerry and Elaine are in the line and they're trying to get a rental car?
Oh, yeah. Everybody,
Say again?
everybody's been saying it lately because of all that.
Because of the, yeah. So here's how the bit goes, and it's great that I, complete amateurism, going to try to create Seinfeld. But basically, here's how it goes. Elaine and Jerry are in the line at the rental car agency, and Jerry goes up and says, hi, I'm here to pick my car. And she says, oh, sorry, we only have compacts, we don't have any full size. And he says, oh, I don't understand. I reserved the full size. She says, sir, I know what you reserved. Well, then it should be here. He says, well, no, we just ran out. She says, well, I don't get it. The reservation is supposed to hold the car here. And she says, sir, I know how a reservation works. He says, I don't think you do. You know how to take the reservation. It's the holding of the reservation. That's the whole thing. So, so I think the hardest part is really rarely a function of the planning. It's the doing of the stuff. Bringing it back full circle. If it's important enough to put on the calendar block, it's important enough to list out, to bookend, then we kind of have to have a little bit of the 5 to 30 seconds of courage to respect our time more than other people. So, how to get an extra hour in a day? So Jessica, to your point, it all happens to us, especially people like me with a high need, to please. There is a way, as someone brings you something, even if it's maybe important, yet not necessarily urgent, to just very nurturingly say, hey, this does seem important. Tell you what, in order to not shortchange this conversation, are you okay if maybe we pick this up at R? And if you have a team, WIM stands for weekly individual meetings. 5-minute check-in if you have that in your world. 5-minute check-in on Monday. Plans for the week. What do you hope to accomplish? And then who had the comment of what do you need from me? That was you, right? At the beginning. Steve, you said if you need help from me, let me know.
Right. Yep.
So time blocking it is an example of that. Hey, what do you need from me this week in order to help you achieve the goal? So to bring it back full circle to Jessica, your point is I think that we can probably just realize we have a little more control and people will maybe be okay with that. Hey, this sounds important, maybe not urgent. Are you okay if we pick this up later on? Right? Or okay, not okay. I'm really good at that. I'm really good at making myself feel not okay to make others feel more okay. Hey, Matt, I gotta tell you, if left to my own devices, I can really go down a rabbit hole. Is it okay if you do me a favor? Say yes, Matt.
Yes.
So why don't we pick that up? That way I can be more involved in the conversation. Otherwise, I'll be a squirrel chaser. I basically make myself feel less okay to make him feel more okay. In order for me to be intent in this conversation, I need to be present, which means let's do it at 4 o'clock. When in the morning we talked about, when I say self-control, I don't mean like the concept. There's actually an app called self-control. There's a lot now. So be careful, because it works. There's a lot of apps that will literally, no matter what, lock you out of your digital distractions. It's crazy. It's like, I don't know, NSA level. It doesn't matter what you do. If you put on there, don't let me into Facebook or Instagram or whatever for an hour, it will not let you in. And you'll curse it. you'll be angry with yourself and the technology. Doesn't change anything. So there actually are a lot of apps. If you really want to go scorched earth, yeah, there actually are apps that will prevent you from yourself. Delegate when possible. Shorter phone calls and ironclad agendas. I don't do anything without one. In fact, we have 3 minutes to go, and there's a reason why, because I said we have 50 minutes together, talk to you about X, Y, and Z, and we will be out on time. So I don't really agree to meetings without an agenda. It doesn't have to be this massive thing sent out. If someone's going to request your time, just nurturingly ask them to make sure they come do it with a plan. Be really, really careful as to the time required and bookend it, as in what do we hope to achieve and what happens next. So it's a technique we call upfront contract, but it works for everything we do. Hey, when we meet, is it okay if we have a plan? You come to me with some ideas, I'll come with some ideas. At the end, we'll make sure we have some action plans. That becomes the framework, the skeleton of everything you do. Toughest thing first, eat the frog. Anyone here journal? Huge fan, part of my daily routine. But even if you're not journaling your emotions, I'm a big believer in a behavioral journal. Quick check in the morning. What are the 3 or 4 things you want to do? At the end, quick check in. Which of them did you do? And kind of track that daily log. You know, learn to say no, which is really hard. But let's try it now, okay? Everyone, I'm going to ask you guys for something. You guys just say no. Okay, ready? Wait. Yeah. Okay, here's what I want you guys to do. Give me a round of applause. All right, guys, we're done. I appreciate you guys. Thanks, guys. I agree. I don't know if that's right there.
Sandler sales? Is that what you do?
That's what I do.
Tim Fowler, it's good to meet you.
Hey, great to meet you as well. I've heard nothing about you. Kidding.
That's okay.
I'm totally kidding. I've actually heard a lot about you from.
I'm more important than you think I am.
No, I'm totally kidding. Actually, a couple of my Sandler folks, you know Jeff Borovitz?
One more.
You know Jeff? Jeff, he's out of.
Borovitz.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He works with us a lot.
Yeah. He's one of my closest friends. He actually.
What you need to know is that